And welcome, guys. Episode 5 of Tech 43. I am Mark. Say hi, Eddie.
Hi, Eddie.
I saw it coming in. Say hi, Brian.
Hi, Eddie.
It got worse. I apologize for that. We're 3 minutes in, 2 minutes in, and these guys are idiots.
I'm already drunk. That's why.
Off Ritas. This is pretty cool. Just hopefully we're quick with this week's episode. We're going to do some reflection on the Apple keynote. So we'll go over each device that we saw, some of the stuff we liked, maybe didn't like as much, things that we thought we were going to see, didn't see. A couple things on the Android front and Google front, including some fires of devices catching fire. Shocker. A little bit of gaming.
Guess what manufacturer? Yes. Let's play that game.
Shocker. What phone exploded this week? Some gaming stuff and Eddie's Tesla Minute, where he has some stuff. And then speaking of catching fire, Elon Musk lighting something up. So basically just to kick it off, I mean, overall, I think we all watched the keynote. Overall, what would your thoughts be? I know we had some expectations for what we thought we would see. Some of those didn't actually come to fruition the way we thought. So what do you think overall, Eddie?
I think it's an S year. It felt like an S year where you can go back all the way to the 3GS and watch those keynotes, and it's like they're structured the same. It's almost like they took the same outline and then just plugged the new devices into it. Refinement from what's last year. And so I guess it's interesting in terms of what they're striving for. Like as their prices raise, I see a lot of, they're almost like not like, just think of the watch, for the most part, it's one of the most expensive smartwatches. So it's seen as like a premium type luxury item. And it looks like the phones are kind of heading in that direction as well. Cause there was a lot of talk about the budget iPhone, and that one starts at $750. It's like Apple is completely abandoning the low end, low cost game and just, shooting for, $750 is the least expensive modern iPhone that you can get, as opposed to, unless you count last year's where the price dropped.
I mean, the low end, it was kind of crazy to see the fact that we kind of knew the 10 was going to go away because they can't cannibalize sales for the 10S. Why would you buy the 10 right now for the same price as the 10S, minus availability being an issue, which we'll get into with the other ones. But it was kind of crazy to see we all thought that, and Brian talked a lot about, hey, that $699 price point would be kind of clutch for that iPhone, that budget iPhone. And budget's going to have to be in air quotes at this point because it's kind of rough to call that budget. But what was your thought, Brian, when you saw $749 instead of like the $699 that we were talking about?
I don't know. I mean, it's an extra $50 that you're getting a different color metal for. I don't know. Maybe that's what drove the price up over 700. I mean, I was reading a pretty interesting article from Droid Life that was talking about the XR and how if an Android company, any one of them, Motorola, Samsung, LG, came out with a budget phone with those specs, it said,
I might have lost him.
I think I did too.
750.
Apple had him down. There he is.
There you go.
He's back.
Oh,
we lost you
away.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yes.
So I'm assuming you missed everything that I said.
No,
all the way up to 750.
Yes.
And if an Android manufacturer came out with those specs for
at
750,
that price point, we would laugh them off the stage. That was how I ended up.
It's happened once. It's happened with the Moto X. That was exactly what happened with the Moto X. A 720p display with a dual core. They had like a custom chipset, but custom chipset 720p.
That was the first
display
visual core, or the first
like
second core device where they were using something different other than like dual quad core
for a flagship price, and they got roasted until people used it. So
he's saying that people are going to love this 10R.
Oh, I mean, people are going to love it. I mean, they did a really good job.
I'm surprised they put as much from the 10s into the 10R as they did. I was minus the display. I was surprised how much stuff was parallel to the 10s.
I mean, they spent a lot of time talking about the camera on these phones, and so they're talking about the 10s and then the 10s Max, and they're like, oh yeah, the cameras are so great, and then they're like, here's the XR, and it only has, we did something we've never done before, and you have one camera on the back and it does bokeh, and I was like, oh, we did this last year. And someone else did it the year before that, but it wasn't you. So and I think I was trying to keep track of how often they were saying the word bokeh, and it was up to like 25 within a 5-minute span. And I couldn't believe how much they were hammering that.
Can we talk a little bit about how awful these names are? Like I audibly out loud was like, are you serious? When they said the name of the Max, which I was like, that's just ridiculous. Like why can't it be a plus? Besides the fact that they said in the keynote, what's bigger than plus was their whole reasoning, or whatever they're going to rationalize it for. And then the R, that's just going to lead to all kinds of stuff. What does this R stand for? Sort of conversation, none of which are appropriate.
Just yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Almost been better if they would have just dropped the number 10 and then just went with iPhone S, iPhone like Max, and iPhone R. Like just no 10.
I was down the line as each one was announced. I was like, "That's shitty." Excuse my language. And then the 10s, because of the Roman numeral, is why it's crap. Why it's going to be XS in that whole conversation. The Max I don't like, but that's personal preference because I reference it with Motorola at this point. And the R, which was I didn't, maybe I just wasn't online enough to recognize that it leaked before the announcement, because I didn't know that was going to be a thing. And it was like, well, what the hell is that? I didn't know what is that supposed to mean? So I was underwhelmed is probably the best case scenario for those names. The drinking game of bokeh, magical
was only said twice.
And revolutionary didn't happen, I don't think.
I don't remember. Courage was not mentioned either.
Yeah.
This was not a courageous launch.
Yeah. I mean, like I said when Brian was talking about the 10R, I mean, they fit a bunch of stuff into it. I mean, they put the A12 in it. It's a bigger display. I mean, it is 720 on the resolution of the display, and the bezels are I would say double the thickness of like the regular 10. I mean, the crazy part is that you're not going to be able to see it till the end of next month. I don't think
it's a cheaper model too, which is a little bizarre.
Backwards.
Yeah. Right? It's not going on pre-order until the 19th, and then you're not going to be able to see it in the store until later, like a week and a half later, 2 weeks, something like that.
I mean, I feel like they don't want to cannibalize their 10s and 10s Max sales,
or their reduced cost models. Like they're going to try to clear out those 7s.
Oh yeah, they're going to try to get
and pluses. Like because right now the 8 and the 8 Plus is like right around that same price point. So you just get as many of those as you can out the door, and then
as far as you guys would know, what do you think the sales are like? I mean, on like a 7 or a 7 Plus or an 8 or an 8 Plus, are those sales comparable to say a 10 sales now? Or what do you think that's going to look like? But what are they now? Like, what are the sales of the 8 and 8 Plus like currently?
I think it depends. Eddie and I are in 2 different sectors. Eddie is in consumer and I'm in business, and businesses are cheap and they go for the low end devices. And so, we're expecting higher volumes of 7s and 8s than we are 10Ss and 10S Maxes. you know, at least on our end. Like we're expecting to sell a lot of those. The 10R, when that comes out, or Junior, maybe that's what it's supposed to be a play on, is Junior. I don't know.
Someone said Rainbow. It was Project Rainbow at Apple, and then they just shortened Rainbow into R. That was a discussion I had with some Apple folks.
It literally sounds like that was decided 5 minutes before they went on stage.
They were like, "We can't call it."
Oh man,
Rainbow.
we forgot to give it a name. So I mean, I could see that selling a little bit better in both consumer and business. But yeah, I mean, 7s and 8s were selling more than 10s in my sector than anything else.
So you're talking about, if we're talking monthly payment, you're talking about a $10 difference monthly between an R and a 10S, right? It's $10. I think it's $4 per $100.
Yeah, like $11 after like change, 11 sure. Some change.
So for an average consumer, they see a full screen bezel-less, if you will, minus double the bezels of the 10, but bezel-less compared to their 7 or 8 plus that I doubt that they would trade in for 8 plus or an 8 for a 10R, but coming from a 7, 6S, 7, $10 less, is that worth? I feel like all the specs that they talked about for an average consumer is going to be fine. It's going to be, I feel like the sales, if they're available, is the sales for that model will trump the other two, unless you're just out for the best.
I'm sure battery life's going to be outrageous. You got you're pushing a 720p panel. You're going to have insane battery life. Like there was a couple, import only Chinese phones that had 4,000 milliamp hour batteries with a 720p display, and people got like 4 days out of it. So
they were really, and speaking of, they were really vague about battery overall. Like they didn't do any sort of milliamp conversation.
Yeah, you know what? And they normally talk about estimated battery life, and they didn't really.
They talked about what it was going to be on above and beyond the 10.
Once it was 30 minutes. They said that it would get you 30 additional minutes, and it just struck me as odd because it's such a insignificant number.
Well, that was the 10 versus the 10S, and then the 10S Max is going to be an hour and a half more than the actual 10, which was, I'm like, okay, so what's the reasoning for picking the phone there? Well, it's the last phone, so that's why they're picking that phone direct. But it was just odd to hear like how many more hours or how many more hours you're getting over the last model instead of just like this. I don't know if did they ever say the milliamps during the keynote? I don't know, but I mean, I haven't heard it anywhere.
They left a lot of stuff out that they normally talk about. Like they normally do a side-by-side graph of percentages of hardware improvements as far as processing power goes, graphics. They touched on it, but they didn't.
Like all that was like based on how powerful the A12 is.
Yeah, and they just went off of, they described the cores in it, which is something they don't normally do. So they just went through a quick, not a demonstration, but a quick overview of it's a 6-core device, but really there's only two. It's only a dual core high power. So there's 2 high power cores, 4 low power efficiency cores. And then Phil Schiller mentioned that all 6 could be active at once, which is something that the Android devices don't do. When you see the octa-cores, it's one or the other. They can kind of flip-flop between their high power and their low power. Apple has, this is, to my knowledge, the first time a device was able to use the low power cores as like a backup or just like a co-processing. So that'll be interesting to see.
I feel like it was almost let's talk about all the stuff and kind of confuse people into being like, this is all the awesome stuff. And these are if you're talking about cores in a keynote, I don't know if every consumer is watching a keynote, but they're going to get bits and pieces of it, whether it be online or whatever. So are we going to talk in circles a little bit to make it sound a certain way to the average person so that they're not realizing how small of an iterative upgrade it is? So it's not that big. And granted, that we're tempering expectations by calling it an S year. But did they talk around all the small spec bumps just to make it not sound quite as insignificant.
I think so. They did that with the watch. They focused on like health and fitness. The camera, they went crazy with the camera. Like they, it's almost like every time a Pixel story came out with how amazing the Pixel camera was, that someone somewhere was like, oh, and then they ended up, they literally talked about, I've never seen, normally they touch on it, but this was something else, like where they were just going through and saying this entire commercial was shot with an iPhone. Like they really went for it as far as the photography aspect goes, and didn't pay attention to, to much else as far as like they normally talk about. No wireless charging. They didn't talk about anything to that effect. None of their accessories at all, in fact.
I know they didn't talk about the fact that they're not putting fast charging bricks in the boxes again, or the fact that they're not putting a headphone jack dongle in the box either. I could care less at this point about a headphone jack dongle. The fast charging brick thing is kind of annoying me at this point. Like it's probably best that they didn't trump up the fact that, like, they did speak about fast charging. I think they did mention fast charging at one point, but I'm glad they didn't like use that as something that's a great benefit, because they're not giving you the option to do it outside of an additional $80, which is just blowing my mind as far as how this is still going on.
I don't think that they believe the world is ready for Type-C, is what I really think. Like, is that
wasn't there a conversation that the new iPads that we didn't see in this were going to be Type-C anyways? I
believe they will be. I believe that, I believe Apple will switch. I mean, the one end is, if you get the fast charge bricks, they didn't have a choice. The other one end is Lightning, one end is Type-C. But like, they don't talk about that much because I don't know that it's consumer ready yet. Like, I know it's been around for years now, but like the average person, I don't think really has a grasp on Type-C itself. I mean, there's no vehicle, every vehicle you buy, it's a standard USB. Like, they'll switch whenever Type-C is literally integrated into everything, and they won't switch a minute before.
Yeah, I think they need to have their massive clientele comfortable with the fact that they're gonna be outfitting. Like we all know the conversation of, if the people are upset when they went from the 30 pin, 20 pin, 30 pin, whatever, 20 pin to Lightning anyways. So it was like, I have to switch all these chargers. Was that conversation? I think your conversation is a little bit more about the fact that it's the one end is Type-C, so that like nothing's really compatible at that point. But I guess if you're an Apple user, you've never really had the ability to fast charge, so you're not missing something that you haven't had. But I mean, wireless charging is kind of the thing. Like I've charged this iPhone 10 wirelessly since I purchased it. I like the trickle charge aspect, the fact that it's not going to overcharge it and things like that. But I've plugged it in maybe 2 or 3 times to charge, and when I do plug in, it was usually in the car for CarPlay, and it just happened to charge on top of that. So if you're not missing something you've never had, I guess they're skating on that. I just think it's tough to have that feature and not enable it as per se out of the box. But I mean, I'll give them the credit that they didn't actually trump it up as a major feature, because they weren't really allowing anybody to do it out of the box. Rant over. Like, the LCD, them calling it liquid retina, super like, really. They don't. It doesn't have 3D touch, which I don't know a human being that uses it. Yellow product red, which is available, and it right out of the gate for the first time, I think, overall. Blue, coral, black, and white. So I guess it feels like the 5C conversation. I think it looks a lot more premium compared to what the 5C looked like up against, was it the 5S at the time?
Well, they're glass backed, which I think is a plus, at least in those terms. If you put all 6 of them together and snap your fingers, you can kill half the population. I mean, there's not a stark difference really between the red and the coral, just looking at the images of it. But I mean, I remember that blue always sold really well, yellow sold really well, and pink. So they kind of just stuck with what worked and got rid of that green that nobody wanted.
I can't get enough people online using The Walking Dead as every time they talk about the coral version, and they're like, what colors do they have? And then it's just friggin' coral, and it's just the greatest thing ever. I just love every time they do that. It's the greatest thing. But everybody seems to love that color the most. Whether it just be because it's different, makes sense, I guess, but everybody kind of loves that color. I think that the only thing that looks cheap necessarily is the surrounding casing, which is stainless, the same way that the tennis.
Aluminum. It's aluminum on the R and stainless steel on the S and the Max.
It looked kind of cheap, I won't lie. Maybe if it wasn't the same color as the rest of the phone, it wouldn't look cheap because of the way they colored it. I don't know if that's why it looks cheap to me. I've obviously never held them. I watched a couple reviews or quick hands-on at this show. They just kind of looked a little bit cheap comparative to the 10S or the 10.
I think it's the bezel that really kind of cheapens it, because the 10S and the 10S Max, every time I say that I get a headache. The 10S Max, like the edge to edge on it is really nice, and it's really nice. You know, you can see that they did a really good job trying to design it so that way the curve flowed around the entire phone. And with the R, just looking at it, it reminds me a lot of the C, where it was that plastic that was snapped into plastic and they fell apart all the time. And so that's my huge worry, is that you have that LCD panel on the front and it's probably just held in there by 5 foot-pounds of force just snapping into place. And it does look cheap. It really does on the front. It doesn't look as polished as their other phones for that extra $100 starting price.
I feel like the 5Cs fell victim to the battery swell a lot easier than like the other iPhones did, because they just pushed apart a lot quicker because of the small amount of force that's required to. I have a iPod here that's blown up, like it's literally double the width now because the battery is expanded beyond expansion. But I'm hoping that's not the case, especially with what Eddie was saying about battery life. I'm hoping that it's going to get really good battery life so people aren't overcharging this thing and having it literally just blow up. Because we all know that the more you charge that device, the more cells you're going to kill in that battery, and it's going to blow up.
I think it'll be okay. I think that the C's problem was it was plastic, and plastic, didn't conduct. It wasn't able to dissipate the heat throughout the shell like you look at aluminum and glass, where the outside feels warm and it's properly getting the heat out of there, as opposed to the plastic itself. And it may have been a difference of a few degrees, but heat's the enemy of batteries. So that's might have been just an oversight, and they realized that, oh crap, this thing isn't, if it's not kept cool, if people are using it and they're using it in a warm environment and the phone gets hot, battery is going to degrade faster and pull itself apart.
Need that liquid cooling that Samsung got. Yeah. I'm hoping, like in general, I think that, most people are jumping on the train that this is going to be the one that sells the most out of the three, which I could see because of the price point and the fact that you're not really compromising a ton on things that the average consumer would think are important. So I see, like everybody else sees, that this is going to be the one that sells the most. But I come back to the 6.1 inch display, which I think is probably a benefit. I know there's a lot of people that prefer a smaller phone at this point. Like, people are backing off of the Note sized phones and wanting, like, the 10 was a very, very good sweet spot for a lot of people with the screen to body ratio. So I think that's going to be really nice. I don't. Do you think that the 10s is enough of an upgrade internally for people to want to upgrade? I mean, I think Eddie said it right. If you have a 7 or a 7 Plus, you're probably going to want to upgrade to one of the three at that point. But if you have an 8 or an 8 Plus or a 10, are you going to upgrade to the 10s or the 10s Max?
I think so. Just depending on your scenario. Apple's got the new every year, so they've got that under control. Where if you have last year's phone, you can just trade it in and buy this year's phone at no cost, unless you bought a 10, because you wouldn't be quite at your year yet. Like another payment or two. So that's your annual customers. I think the biggest gap they're going to have is from the year prior, like your 7s and your 7 Pluses. I don't know that they may not be ready yet to, they came out of a payment, their phone bills all went down, and they're like, well, I like my button, I'm going to keep it.
That was my question. Are these guys ready to give up a button too? I
think the 7s are going to stick, and then anything before the 7, the battery is going to be garbage. 6 and 6S, people are going to upgrade out of frustration. People are going to upgrade from the last year's 10 and the 8 because they can and they love Apple. And then you're going to be stuck with like the 7 generation, where they're going to say, they're going to stay. I think the 7s will stick around the longest in the wild.
It's kind of funny because I saw a GIF of some sort of like, it was a person, and there was a sped up video of like someone in like convulsions, and it said all iPhone batteries as soon as the 10s comes out, an iPhone 7 battery as soon as the 10s comes out, and it was like, and it's like, this is what all the iPhone batteries are doing. The second the 10s comes out, is every battery is going to hell because the new phone came out. So it was nice.
Apple does this on purpose.
Well, don't they all?
Battery always dies when the new one comes out.
The whole software thing with the battery stuff is a whole nother conversation. We only have a designated amount of time at this point. I mean, with the 10s and the 10s Max, there was incremental upgrades. I mean, you get the A12 chip with the trumped up camera that they were talking about with Bokeh, and take a shot.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like Eddie said, those people that are in that 7 to 7 Plus range are gonna do it close to like necessity / I'll try the bezel-less option. No home button, no Touch ID. I haven't had an issue with Face ID to a point where I'd be like, I totally couldn't stand it, minus knowing that I have to wait for it to actually unlock. But the Max may be kind of tough to swallow monetarily, unless you're, like Eddie said, you're a lifer on the Apple side. You're starting at $1,100. They're giving you a 512 gigabyte option, as well as a 256. Or I think that's how that works at this point.
64 256.
Yeah. We're starting at $1,100. You're getting close to the upper. You're getting within a couple $100 of $2,000 if you're up there. That just like, I mean, we were giving Samsung a hard time about $1,250 for a 512 gigabyte Note 9. It's just tough. I mean, I like the fact that you have the largest display on an iPhone ever. It's 6.5-inch display on a phone that's smaller than the 8 Plus. Benefits all around with internals and that display. But monetarily, I don't know that 512 is necessary for any human being. Onboard memory. Anyways, I think it's just going to be tough to swallow. They'll sell some, but I don't know that it'll sell as well as the R will at this point.
It's hard to say. Like, I don't know. I think they did a good thing by keeping the frame as small as possible on it. That's always a good thing, because the Pixel 2 XL, that is a struggle to fit into pockets, sometimes.
Skinny jeans doing no justice.
I know, right? But even like dress pants too, like the corner of it's still sticks out of the top of it. I mean, you two know I'm not the tallest person in the world, but
Small human.
Small human, but still that putting a big display like that on a smaller body was a good move. That 8 Plus isn't really that cumbersome to hold or to use. So I mean, that's you're going to have people that are going to want it because it's the most expensive, newest, most different iPhone that's out there. Then I think you're going to see people buy it for that reason. You're going to see people buy it who just want a bigger screen than what they've had before. So if you're in that upgrade cycle and last year you bought an 8 Plus and you're like, oh man, I can get essentially a smaller phone with a bigger screen. Like that's a steal. Why not? Just shell out the $1,100 for it.
And the move to the form factor, getting rid of the home button and such, has allowed them to do what Samsung does, which is make it slimmer and then make it taller. So, having held the Plus model personally, it is very reminiscent of a Note, where it's not wide anymore. Like the iPhone, if you take an iPhone Plus and it's wider. And then if you set the Max on top, you can see the Plus behind it because it's thinner, and then it's just taller. So they've got it's good for the hand, but like Brian said, you can, getting it into pockets, it's taller. So it's, if you have shallow pockets, it's going to stick out. But that's, for men speaking, it's been extremely popular with females as far as, they just drop it in a clutch or in a purse. And they get like a huge phone with a great camera, great battery life. That's the market.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I know the Plus models I think you're right. The Plus models were a big hit for anyone that could put it in a bag of sorts and just kind of carry it around. But we'll see how the price point affects the sales here in a little bit anyway. So,
I can almost guarantee you it's going to have no impact on it. You know what I mean? It's for Apple. No, you expect to pay a premium for what you're buying from them. Plus, being able to have it broken up into monthly payments, those are going to come in at what, $40, $45 a month on a 24-month payment
something
plan,
like
right?
that.
Right around there.
Mine's like 41, I think, for the 10.
You're already used 40. You're used to paying 40 or 41, and then you say, well, I can get this phone that has bigger battery, bigger display, feels awful comfortable, super quick, great camera, and it's going to cost me like $4 extra a month. Like, you don't think of anymore. If you're on a modern phone plan with a payment, you no longer think in the absolute total value, like the total cost of the phone. You don't think $50 anymore. You think it's $9 more than I pay now. Like that's
it is one less pumpkin spice latte this month.
Right. It's easy to, you're not, you're coming from a 6 that you paid off 3 years ago, then yes, it's $50 a month or $48 a month. But, most Apple folks have really, stayed up with it, and they're accustomed to paying X amount of dollars, $33, and every year, you add $2 or $3 or $4 to that. It doesn't seem significant. Like that 12, you don't see the $1,250 or the $1,450 cost. You see $4 a month, which is much more palatable than $1,250.
It makes it easier to swallow for sure.
I mean, there's still segments out there that can buy these phones on 2-year pricing, and that the 10S is, what was it? It's like $600 on a 2-year contract. Like, it's insane. But then when you start looking at it from, monthly payments, it's like, okay, well, it's not that, it's not that bad. And like Eddie said, if you're already used to having it, that $5 extra is, it's not a huge difference. And there's a good chance that you can probably trade your old phone in and lower that payment down more.
Yeah, and I think that they're not going to cannibalize the sales of the 10S and the 10S Max, because with the 10R, because if they think that if it goes the way I'm assuming, and the 10R is one of the more popular is the most popular of the three. They're going to get a lot of their sales of the 10S and the 10S Max in the month we have here to sell those devices until you are even available to pre-order the 10R. So they didn't want to necessarily cannibalize the sales of the 10S and the 10S Max with having all three out at the same time. Whether that was on purpose or because of production. I mean, we know that they have production issues out the gate every year. So, I mean, you'll see sales of the 10S and the 10S Max. I wouldn't necessarily upgrade to a 10S. I might look at a 10S Max if I thought that I wanted a bigger display. I would need to see it. I think, like Eddie said, if I could look at it and hold it in my hand and get a wrap my mind around how I carry this around every day, maybe my battery life isn't that bad to begin with. But I honestly think that the average person doesn't mind a smaller phone at this point, and something more palatable to kind of deal with is not quite as cumbersome. But that's just me. Yeah, I don't know. But they also, on top of that, if we're talking about pricier things, which this is kind of the opposite, with a Series 4 watch, not quite as expensive, I think, is what we're used to, because they did not do the edition this time, for what I understand. So you're not getting that super premium version. I think they're starting at $399, a larger display than the version 3. They talked a little bit about haptic feedback on the crown, and that being
really excited about that.
Yeah,
like real excited. And I was like, what? Like I didn't watch last year's keynote when they were talking about the watch. Because they did the phones first and then they did the watch or something. I can't remember, but I just remember not watching that. So was that like that last year where they're like, yeah, now when you turn it, it's haptic feedback. It vibrate. I'm like, oh my God, they're like super into this.
There's zero reason that the watch, like Eddie uses his watch a good bit, and that's a different operating system. Applications on a smartwatch aren't really there to the point where people use their smartwatch for applications. I think on the whole, applications aren't really what they're doing. They're doing fitness and they're doing notifications at this point.
And that's what they showed. They showed health aspect. They really pushed the health stuff where, able to detect arrhythmias. You can do an EKG right on your wrist now.
FDA certified too, which
FDA
is
certified EKG on your wrist. Fall detection, where if you fall, it'll give you the opportunity to call for help. And then if you're immobile for a minute,
life alert.
Right? if you're out for a minute without moving, then it just calls for you. There was a lot there. There was almost no discussion of apps on the device itself. They focused on cellular connectivity without the phone, which starts at $500. The cell ones, they're a bit more expensive. They pushed connectivity without the phone, fitness, and health and safety is kind of like where they pushed it. And you can see a huge difference from the first keynote, where they didn't even know what it was. They just know that they needed to have one. They were drawing hearts. They were like, you can draw a heart and you can share your heartbeat with someone else with an Apple Watch, and you draw pictures and all. They went through a million different things that it could do, and then they just laser focused at this one. None of that was in there, and it was based around 3 things, and it was connectivity, like being able to communicate with friends, families, the health, and then the safety aspect. And that was literally all they talked about, other than the hardware improvements to the watch, which is the crown and the display.
I also read that all the models are ceramic now. Did I hear that correctly?
I know the cellular ones are. I don't know about the Bluetooth only ones.
I think that there's stainless steel and aluminum for sure, right? I'm sorry, because I'm getting them confused with last year's models. You know what I mean?
I think Mark's referring to the backs. I think that the back sides are all.
Okay, got you. I think
I thought maybe I just misheard when they were talking about it, because I know that ceramic was more expensive. A full ceramic watch was more expensive because of the durability last year than the aluminum or the steel. I thought the way I understood it, that they were all going to be ceramic. I think that weren't all, like Eddie was saying, all of last year's watches were ceramic on the back. And now I thought these were going to be totally ceramic, but I may have just heard wrong.
I'm sure Brian's looking at it now. I could see the reflection.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a benefit for me. If that's the case, that's a benefit. I didn't think that $399 was all that bad for an Apple product that I think very few people have an Apple device or an Apple phone at this point and don't have an Apple Watch with it. I think that they even mentioned that the Apple Watch is not only the best-selling smartwatch, but the best-selling watch in general, which is just kind of makes sense if it's Apple to me, but that's still kind of crazy to hear in actual English. But to have all ceramic, that kind of, because we know what the aluminum will do when I've smacked my watch off of doors and like cried for 10 minutes with gashes in it or whatever. So it's having a ceramic option, or not an option, but that being the standard would be clutch for me. Did you find anything, Brian?
Did I find anything on it yet? No, not yet.
No. Good job.
You're welcome. You did cut out for a second, so that could have been when you asked me to do that.
Fair enough. Kind of, sort of. But, I mean, they, like Eddie said, it wasn't a big. They started with the watch. So that was a little bit. I was surprised how quickly they went into the phones. They didn't have, and to touch on this, they didn't do any Mac updates. They didn't do any iPad updates. We didn't hear a lot of AirPower. AirPower is starting to fall off of their website a little bit.
It already has.
Yeah.
I don't believe you can find anything on it now if you go to their website.
I think the only thing I saw, and this was a couple days ago, was the AirPods section tab that still had, because the wireless charging case isn't still available, I don't think. And the picture was of the AirPods laying on AirPower with the watch and everything. So I think that was the only remnants of where AirPower is on the. And maybe it's just too tough of a thing. We talked about it in a prior episode about it's like a legit computer system inside of that to know what to do and how to charge the things. So maybe it's just a little bit too much to try to do in a 3-year period or a 2-year period of the last time when they first started talking about it. It's just kind of crazy, because I ask about it every time we have another Apple conversation, and it's just never any further along than it was the previous time.
I have your answers.
Yeah,
you're looking for.
Please do.
Series 4 available in stainless steel or aluminum, which we knew that. The all ceramic edition is not a thing anymore. So they're sticking with, there's a chart here. So there's aluminum with Sport Band, Sport Loop, Nike Sport Band, Nike Sport Loop, steel, Sport Band, Sport Loop, and then Milanese. And then they have steel is for the, and I always pronounce this Hermes, but I guess it's Hermes, because it's spelled like Hermes.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all steel. They all have a ceramic back to it, but the sides are aluminum or steel. No full ceramic model.
So that's kind of not as good as I was picturing in my head. I guess the ceramic back's good. Is that just because of the heart monitor stuff? Is that why that
they mentioned it was for the heart rate monitor, in addition to improved cellular connectivity? I know from experience with the Series 3 that the antennas in that were not great. So a lot of instances of, well, my phone is working, but my watch doesn't work in the same place. And then having that conversation, like, okay, well, your watch is that big in comparison to your phone. It doesn't have the best antenna in it. So I think they're trying to alleviate those concerns by improving there. So that ceramic, I think, should help, because then you don't have your signal bouncing off of steel or aluminum anymore.
And so instead of holding your phone differently, they just tell you to
hold your watch
different. Yeah,
like this or
that's
something.
Great. I mean, I like the look of the thing. I thought it was a needed update as far as the display goes and the ratio of screen to body on that. I'm hit or miss with the haptic feedback on the crown, but I mean, I'm a smart watch wearer because of notifications. My phone is on vibrate at all times, so I have a hard time not having a smartwatch at this point. So with whatever phone I have, I'll probably have a smartwatch just because of that. And I think they did enough updates for it to mean something this time around. But I mean, they spent a little bit of time with it at the beginning and kind of just glossed over probably why I forgot half of the stuff they talked about when I was bringing it up. But is there anything overall with what you heard that left an impression as we close up that conversation about the keynote, any of the devices, anything you didn't see that you wanted to see? They're going to have another event soonish, from what I understand, for some other things maybe. So is there anything in closing that you thought about the event itself?
It's exactly what I expected.
Drop the mic, Brian.
I mean, I'm hard pressed to disagree with Eddie there. That I think we got what we expected. The only thing that, and it fell off my radar and came back on, was dual SIM. That was the only thing that I was surprised by because I forgot about it. So that's going to be a first really for a lot of people here in the US dealing with and asking questions about and what its capabilities are. And, you know, that's really the only thing that surprised me.
Half the people I work with have a dual SIM phone in their pocket, which is the Pixel. And not really a lot of folks realize that it has eSIM and standard SIM tech. I currently have 2 phone numbers on mine, which is a Project Fi number and a Verizon number. And everybody was like, you can believe it? It's dual SIM. And I was like, you guys realize the phone in your pocket does that?
Well, that was the eSIM technology was what got the Apple Watch to do cellular at that point, correct?
Yes.
So this was a thing. I think they're just trying to grab market share overseas because a lot of people need that functionality to be able to do data plans and other things. So it's just another way for them to hit another demographic.
Check the box.
Yeah, I'll close it. I expect to see some other hardware. We thought we were going to see the new iPad. I thought we might see some sort of Mac conversation. Granted, they can make that into their own thing. I thought we'd see the new iPads. We didn't. I was surprised when it ended without another conversation about those because they spent 17 years talking about the cameras on those phones. So I was a little bit surprised to not see the iPads.
Might have been a cost thing. You know, this is the first time. I mean, the iPhones have been gradually eclipsing the cost of an iPad, where it was flipped before that. You know, you would have your iPhones at the $650 mark, and your iPads would start at like the $699 to $799 point. And then iPads.
So it's tough to show them side by side because the price points don't match up anymore.
iPads kind of stayed there and went down, and iPhones kind of shot up from there, with the exception of the largest Pro. And if the iPhone XS Max is going to be, sub $1,000, sorry, it's going to be sub $1,000. I can only imagine what an iPad of 12 inches with that same technology is going to cost. You're going to be in MacBook territory for sure.
Christ. But regardless, it was just odd because there was so much hype about the new iPads and stuff to not hear about it and only hear about the watch and then the phones. They got into the phones so fast in the keynote that I was like, okay, we'll see some other stuff, and it didn't happen. So it was just surprising on my end. So I just kind of wanted to wrap that up and get a feel for what your thoughts were on that. I mean, I think we kind of know where the Apple stuff is going to be at the end of the day. So we're going to kind of fit in our normal Android / Google section, hashtag Eddie's shirt, because that's how this works. I saw the other day, and I'm going to call Eddie out on this conspiracy. I
So
saw,
speaking of things that are going to surprise you,
right. We don't have enough time for Eddie to go through all of his thoughts on this, but there's a leak from a Japanese domain website that actually revealed, I think, the 3 colors we're looking for with the new pixels showing the back of the phone. I believe, and I'm going to have Brian throw maybe some of these links in the description after the fact. I'll give the credit to Front Page Tech. I think that I follow them and watch all of his videos. But he had an inside source that told him, hey, this is going to happen during or around the Apple launch, from a Japanese website. And this happened where you could click on the phone and it would change the color of what it was. So I think we saw a black version, a white version, like a mintish version. So that was kind of,
I'm gonna throw that up there. Give me just a second to pull it up.
Okay. It was kind of crazy to me. People are going crazy thinking it's an Pixel Ultra because they didn't see a notch, but it was the back of the phones. I don't want to say Pixel without a notch because Eddie's going to go off.
I mean, we're going to talk about that anyway. So,
lovely. But it was interesting to know that they're going to troll a little bit. And Brian's got that up. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that's the mint, the white, and then black. So those are the 3 colors that they are supposedly coming out with this year, as opposed to last year. It was the sort of blue, much white, and such black. I can't.
much wow.
Much so wow.
Very.
Doge. There's a Doge.
Very Doge.
I can't.
It was sort of blue, right? That was was that
kind of blue? It was kind of blue.
Okay.
It was blue. It wasn't kind of blue. I don't want to hear it.
It was kind of blue. It was like kind of gray. That's what the color really was.
You can tell like
it's kind of blue. It's gray.
Okay, we're not going to have 10-minute conversation about this. This is kind of blue. Just going to stop. It was just the interesting part over us. The interesting part about this was the fact that it happened at all. Like, this was a controlled troll on Apple during their time, just to kind of remind everybody that these devices are on their way in the next couple weeks. So, I mean, or at least going to be announced in the next couple weeks. So, I mean, go ahead, Eddie. You think that the phones aren't going to have a notch? You think the Pixel 3 XL is not going to have a notch?
You're going to rewind to this moment when I say that they're not going to have a notch.
I'm totally on board with this theory too.
You can be on board with the thought, but the crap that's about to spew out of his face is just ridiculous. Go ahead.
I've been reading the back of that phone. They're going to show the back of that phone, and then on a screen, and then it is going to flip around. And then one of two things. It's either going to flip around with no notch, or it's going to flip around with the notch, which looks like the troll face, by the way, that I was looking at. And they're going to put the troll face up and then fix it and show that there is no notch to it. I was looking at, here it is right here. I don't know if you guys can. So notch, troll face.
I see. I mean, they look exactly the same. So
I am so confident. It is such a bizarre. So a truck full of phones. Okay, I get it can happen. It certainly can happen. They're gone. I don't see them. With all of the hype around the Pixel and all of the clicks and views that it would generate, someone would have bought those units for $2,000 as a steal for the amount of traffic you're going to bring to your website. They're gone. I don't see any more reviews other than those few things that were out there. That's all you see is a couple pictures, a Lyft driver having one snapping some photographs before returning it, taking the case off and returning it to the owner. And clearly there's the YouTubers have been contacted and their videos have been taken. So either Google is playing these videos of people complaining about the notch to their engineering team and beating them while they watch it, or they are literally going to play a montage of all of the terrible things people have said about this notch, and then they're going to show a phone that is completely bezel free, or is completely notch free and bezel free, and have something. There's just too many. Marquez Brownlee has a tweet up about the event where there's like big surprise. Like there's just everything that you see that I've read from reviewers and from YouTubers and from people on Twitter. It hints to this big surprise. It's going to be the coolest thing that has ever happened in phones. And I'm going to be there to see it.
I just like the troll aspect. Like I couldn't deal with a notch. I wasn't gonna mess with the Pixel 3 XL if it had a notch. I mean, I can't do what I saw.
There are two, in my mind, two companies in the world that are capable of this sort of thing. The first one is Tesla, because Elon Musk is just one radioactive accident away from being a supervillain. And then Google, because they like to mess with people. Like that's just part of their MO.
They literally turned on power saving mode on all people's phones remotely to troll the hell out of people.
Kind of. Yes, that's been happening to me. I kept looking at my phone and I was like, I don't remember doing this, but whatever. And then
Google made you think it was your fault.
Yeah, they did actually. They gaslighted me is what they did. It's like, oh, maybe I hit it when I was turning my Bluetooth off. And I could really see them pulling this off. It makes a lot of sense.
Plus, they control the internet. Whether you believe it or not, they control the internet. They control what search results come up. They control YouTube. They control all of the places that you would see this, like you would be able to search for this. They control. Get
your tinfoil hat out right now because this is getting deep.
It's entirely possible. But also think about it too. Why are you shipping 2,000 or 3,000 production units probably 3 months ahead of your launch?
July 6th was the day that
I thought for some reason I thought it was early August, and I was even still that's 3 months ahead of a launch.
July 6th was the day that the video went up with the time, and the date showed July 6th on the video, meaning that the actual event occurred sometime in June. So late June, let's just say, we give it a week for money to change hands and these devices to get around. But the actual video itself was filmed on June 6th. I'm sorry, July 6th. Was filmed on July 6th. This is going to be the greatest marketing stunt in the history of
Mark's face.
I can't.
All things. You can't. So every news outlet, everything is going the next day, and that evening is gonna talk about this, and they are gonna get so much attention and free advertisement from just all of the insanity that goes around the internet based on the fact that they did this. It's what the effort they're putting in now is gonna take the place of millions of advertising dollars, because it's going to self-perpetuate. It's just going to continue to snowball.
I'm a little upset that this may not include an actual Czechoslovakian black market. So if it doesn't, that's going to be a major letdown on my part. I'm not against the idea that this may be the actual outcome. I'm overexposed to your conspiracy theories. Let's go that route. I've heard every angle. You've changed 3 times with how deep this goes. Now Google controls the internet. So it's just getting like, I need
Tell us where
I need
the
like a
sentence is wrong.
I need a
Google
doomsday
controls the
prepping.
internet.
I need
Where's
a
the falsehood there?
I need the doomsday prep for this event because it's just going to be the end of days.
Let me make it smaller. So Google instead
so I
of
can
Google
comprehend.
No,
This
so
is
that
not
because
this is not
maybe
the state that Eddie is talking about. He's talking about the middling state.
so let me maybe the entire internet is an all-encompassing, exaggeration.
Al Gore would be upset with that statement. Continue.
Google controls search.
Correct.
And so your ability to find what they don't want you to find is completely controlled by them, hands down. So by manipulating what you can see and when you can see it, they know how aggressive I am with looking at YouTube for, for things and searching Google for things and looking for leaks. They know people like me. They know exactly what to feed me to keep me interested in talking about it. Like I've never the tech journalists that have come up with this and are getting the Japanese leak and I've never heard of them before. Like they've never been part of anything, and all of a sudden they're at the very top of my feed out of nowhere. They're unrelated to anything that
they control that algorithm
right
to a point where that's just
and before they had so few subscribers, like if you follow their subscriber base back, it was like out of nowhere, like all of the sudden, it's literally all of the sudden they are up there with Marquez Brownlee, Android Central, Droid Life, CNN. Like they're at the top of my stinking feed, and my habits have not changed. I have my subscriptions, I have everything I do. And then it's hard for me to believe that one day something comes up and I get to see all of these things that put ideas in my head. And then the next day it pops up how they're all false and there's no way it could happen. Like but it's too late. Like I've already seen it. And I think about what it makes. It's so logical. It's unbelievable. Like this, when I think about, like we're talking about what Elon Musk, he doesn't advertise at all, $0 in marketing and advertising budget. Yet things that he does and word of mouth is how he sells vehicles. Like it's through simple, just social, the social aspect of things. And I believe that as we get closer to October 9th, that these type of leaks will start to encompass, they've already encompassed like nerds like me. They're going to start to like inch out and reach out into, just normal people's feeds and just get people talking and get that, that buzz going. And then they're just going to do it. And then everybody's going to lose their minds. That is what I say is going to happen.
Everybody can take their aluminum foil hats off at the event because they're just going to blow everybody's mind. I get it. Whatever. I gave you your soapbox.
I feel better
now. So I hope you feel better. But I mean the Japanese domain and the color leaks, like that's real life. That's not coming out of your imagination. So that's real life. I mean, that was kind of cool. I like that aspect. I mean, they're doing cool things like that, but in turn, they're killing Inbox, which is an email client. So like from what I've and knowing Eddie and then knowing a lot of people online that use Inbox as their email client, it's heartbreaking for a lot of people. I think it's like a question of why. I mean, Eddie, you use it. You got the word that it's not going to be a thing anymore. So just kind of talk about your emotional status.
It's bad. That inbox is like the greatest thing that has come out of, Google comes up with a lot of cool stuff. Them taking this away is just absolutely devastating to me because it is the single greatest email app that there is. And I completely understand why it's going away. I just refuse to accept it.
Explain it, because I'm not sure many people will know.
It's not well monetized at all. No, it was definitely a side project at one point in time. Like whenever Gmail and Inbox split off, well, Inbox became a thing. There was a small team of people, and they were like, we're going to come up with cool experimental features that we will test in this very stripped down email environment. It was designed to go to inbox 0, which the whole idea was to keep a clean email inbox and be able to manage everything. And then we're going to take the best of these ideas and we'll filter them over to Gmail. And then that started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you look at Gmail, heavily ad driven. There's a ton of revenue through Gmail, just through the ads that you get in your inbox. And I, forgot all about it because I haven't even looked at Gmail, the app, in years. And then I go back and I'm like, oh, there's ads in here. And there are no ads in Inbox. So it's almost like there's, people forgot that Inbox was there. What's the guy's name from Office Space that's in the basement? Milton. So Inbox is like Milton, where he's just in the basement doing his thing. And then Google's hanging around. They're like, man, we're don't have as many active users, but we have a lot of user base. So what's going on? They're like, wait a minute, what's Inbox doing? Are they still a thing? And then they look down in the basement and there's Inbox just taking all these. Yeah, they're like, wait a minute, we can't have this. They're taking all this. We're not making any money off of them. So it's a revenue thing. Inbox never had ads. So they make 0 off of Inbox and a boatload off of Gmail. So I think it became a victim of becoming too popular and, just being too good. So that's sad. And even if they put all of Inbox's features into Gmail, it just won't be the same. And it's just anytime they kill anything, when they killed Google Reader, I felt, something similar. And this is just another.
It's like killing one of their 16 messaging apps that they have. Or, it's just, I've seen a lot of heavy users use Inbox. The average person, I don't know that the average person necessarily uses Inbox, but people that knew what its capabilities were as far as like filtering and categorizing and things like that.
Such a good app. Oh,
but 100%, I can see where ad revenue would be king versus.
I would pay for it. I would absolutely pay a subscription fee for it if they wouldn't take it away.
He's going to start a petition. It was just something.
Sarah McLachlan right now.
Arms of an angel. So while Eddie pours one out for Inbox, we're just going to move on. He's visibly distraught, so I'm going to move on.
Emotionally crippled.
I don't really know how to handle this, so I'm going to move on. In general, Google also within this week had news where it was joining up with Samsung involving RCS, or basically the type of messaging service that Apple would have with iMessage to a certain degree. Was that rich communication services, from what I understand? So how big of a deal is this? Maybe right now or in the future?
It's a big deal because of Samsung's lion's share of the market. They're one of the most important manufacturers that Google has to work with, as far as just a sheer handset volume sort of thing. So putting that on there will guarantee acceptance quickly, because once you get the big, the bulk of the users in, everyone else will follow suit. Like it's harder for one person to go out and tell 10 people to join this, to let's move over, get this messaging app, as opposed to having 10 people tell one person. If you've got your soccer group and there's 20 people in it and one person has RCS and they're like, oh, I got to get all 20 people to switch over. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got 20 people and that one person is by themselves. They're like, oh, I need to switch to what app now? And then that will automatically gain universal acceptance. So,
because I know it was twofold. It was carrier related as far as getting everyone to sign up for that, And then it was basically the manufacturers then having to step up to the plate. I think that's a big reason why people are with Apple is the messaging experience. You're talking about read receipts, typing notifications, high resolution video and photos being able to be sent. Messaging over Wi-Fi is a huge deal, more than you would ever think. So there's features like that can now be carried over. The only thing that we're missing would be Apple to Android messaging, which I don't think can ever really be a thing because that's an exclusivity iMessage wise.
Well, something has to change because the core messaging technology that the messages flow over is going away. Like that frequency will, is days are numbered. I know Verizon has, 3G 1X, deprecation by the end of next year with, you're not even able to activate a 3G device anymore on that network. So when that goes away, you're not going to have, there has to be some interoperability, and Apple will have no choice, because regardless of how their feelings are when it comes to messaging, and they simply can't close the wall completely.
So basically you're saying that Apple can send a text message over 3G currently. And then whenever that's not a thing, they're going to have to kind of fall in line with, say, other manufacturers and carriers as far as some sort of RCS service, some sort of rich communication service to be able to send messages over.
Yeah, they'll have no choice. Otherwise, he who purchases an iPhone will be unable to communicate a certain way with, somebody who does not, in which case, no matter how bold they will get in terms of they will never say, well, you either switch to Apple or not, because you've got business, you've got education. There's a lot of avenues there where the communication needs to occur across all platforms. And so it's going to force their hand, whether they like it or not. They've got to replace their current green bubbles with, they can leave the green bubbles. They just won't have a choice but to make them work. They'll have to play nice.
So there just needs to be a medium that's going to take the place of 3G service to be able to send a text message, other than, say, Wi-Fi with iMessage and over their servers. Something's going to have to be able to tie the other ecosystems of Android and whatever the hell else is out there at this point. I don't even think Windows Phone is a thing. So something has to be able to send text messages from an Apple device to an Android device,
or put iMessage on other phones, and they're not going to do that. So,
I've been talking to Eddie about this for probably a couple of years with what RCS means to Android, and the features that it could bring to, I won't say rival iMessage and Apple, but how big of a deal it is overall. From what I understand, it's still years out, even though they've created this alliance with Samsung.
Well, it has to be before January 2019. So in
3 months.
I'm sorry, then it has to be 2020. You're right. Yeah, so December 2019 it will be the end. It will have to, you think, it's only one carrier, but it's a pretty significant, carrier. Mm-hmm. So, and it's not like every other carrier, like AT&T, and they're not just jonesing to get rid of old network to keep up. So it'll be fast and furious. Like I would be surprised if, the S10, the Samsung S10 doesn't feature that as an option. And then they just have some kind of interoperability with like iMessage, where you get a different color or a different designation that tells you who you're messaging.
The S8 and the S8 Plus will have access to RCS, and that the S10 should shit out of the box, from what I understood.
And they'll have to go back a few because otherwise, much like the old fashioned basic phones and non-advanced calling phones are just going to stop working on that date. So will text messaging. So you're going to want to impact as few people as possible. So it's every manufacturer's best interest to get it as compatible with as many generations back as possible, because what you don't want is a popular phone to not support it, and then you have that huge clump of people saying, well, what the heck, I can't text message on January 1st.
Basically, that's how it's going to go.
That night they'll be like, Happy New Year, and then back with the message saying, well, it would be a Happy New Year had you have purchased a brand new phone, but since you're on this old phone, you don't get to talk to anybody today or ever again.
And that's just how it goes.
That's great. If we've introduced RCS to anyone in this conversation, I hope that the necessity and the urgency around it, or the reason why it's a big deal, has come to fruition in this conversation, because my benefits of why I like the idea of it were superficial, were the features that iMessage has that Android should have, and those connectivity type things. Physically being able to text message is next level stuff, which I'm glad we actually touched on, because it's a totally different level of being able to use your device, which is, I would say, 90% of what most people have a phone for is a text message, or a message of some sort, but mostly a text message, a green or blue bubble. So that's why that's a big deal. Why I wanted to bring it up anyways. But two small things. I don't know that how much you guys have seen of the Samsung teasing an event on October 11th.
I saw a brief headline. 4 times the fun, right?
It's a quad camera phone.
Foldable phone, maybe?
Mid-range. So it's hard for me to imagine. It would be hard for me to imagine that it's a foldable phone if it were to be a mid-range 4-camera phone. I don't know what that means, but
I mean, if you can fold it 4 times, you could have, 4 cameras. Well, it'd be a triangle, right? That's the only shape that you can get 4 sides on. So foldable, like pyramid-shaped phone with a camera on each side.
You're cut off, Brian.
And I'm muted for the rest
no more
of the night.
sipping of any type of thing for the rest of the evening. Anybody
who watches this long is right now, mind is blown, where they're coming to the realization that a pyramid has 4 sides.
I have no idea what just happened. I can't. I have the ability to mute him. How can I figure this out? First of all, conspiracy theories, Edward. Triangles having 4 sides, Brian. Like, this isn't what this should be. This has went straight downhill, and I apologize.
Should we just skip ahead to the Note 9 catching on fire?
Yeah, I mean, I read it.
I don't know anything about this.
I just read an article literally 3 hours ago that went over a young lady in New York City that was using a Note 9. It was getting hot, so she stopped using it, putting it in her purse, and then it started smoking. And because she dumped it out on an elevator floor, and somebody like smothered it.
Is there a video of it?
I didn't see a video.
Oh, okay.
This is a story because it's a Note and it's the Samsung device. This is a story that happens every year with every model of phone. One phone blows up or catches on fire of every model of every phone. No one hears about it, and it's not a big deal. iPhones have exploded. Haven't heard anything. One Note phone, all of them explode, and now every Note phone is written off for the rest of eternity. I think that's why we're hearing about this, because it's a Note phone. It's a one model out from one that totally blew up in their faces, pun intended, and that's it. She's actually filing a lawsuit, so that was kind of, I think, why that was a big deal right now.
Yeah, she filed a lawsuit. This headline from CNET is Galaxy Note 9 reportedly catches fire in woman's purse. It's not reportedly, it did. Just leave that aside. But the sub headline is incident allegedly occurred after Samsung overhauled its battery inspection process following the Note 7 nightmare. So, I mean, that's what they're, it's so easy to feed right off of that. So here's hoping it's a one-off and that we don't have to go through that debacle of the Note 7 all over again.
I'm going to go on a limb and say that if you were to scrub her Amazon history, that there's going to be a $1.99 Type-C charging cable in there somewhere that she purchased. And that is because in reality, there is still no set Type-C standard as far as power delivery goes. So you look at these, there's a list online that Google provides of manufacturers and devices that are safe to use, but there's still all these like $2 cables, and they're growing in popularity based on the fact that people are switching from micro devices, and they have, where they've accumulated years worth of chargers, and then all of a sudden they have one that came in the box. Maybe they bought a car charger the day they bought their phone, and they're thinking, well, I need a cord for work, I need a cord for this, I need a cord for that. Let's go to Amazon. Oh, it's $2. And then here we are. But because I have a hard time, again, batteries explode. They do in everything. But Samsung is a special case because if there was a battery that was going to be overchecked at the factory, it's going to be theirs.
And they did. I think they came out and even said that that battery in that phone has way more checks than are required for quality assurance for any battery in any device. So they made sure they went above and beyond. I like I said when I started this conversation, every model of every phone has had one that's melted, kind of got hot and didn't work right, caught fire, whatever. You hear about what they want you to hear about. So it is what it is. You hear about this because of its late cousin's issues that it had. But
someone brought me a phone in the last maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and the charging cable essentially got hot and heated, either caught fire or something. The point with the cord was fused to the device, so you could not remove the charging cable from the device. It was a Type-C cable, and it was like, they're like, oh, these phones are, it was just a barrage of just bashing the phone itself. Being it that the cord was fused, I could go to the other end of the cord and see who made it. And just a quick Amazon search later, I could see that there were, several hundred 1-star reviews. I clicked on that, and I have people that right down the line, hey, burned a hole in my car seat, burned a hole in my, my closet, burned a hole in my couch. And then I proceeded to show that to that person. And I said, well, if there are also, a little bit over 400 people who have had the same issue because they bought this particular cord. So not really the phone's fault as much as it is the fact that you purchased a cord for $2.
I think we've been talking about that for a while. If you've ever talked to any of us in a setting where we could give a recommendation on something like that, buying third-party cables, like my brother's bought cables that light up for like 2 years, and I'm like, dude, you need to stop. Like they're not good for your situation.
It's kind of like cars. There are certain things you don't want to cheap out on: batteries, windshield wipers, windshield wiper fluid. Get all the good stuff for that.
Brakes.
Stop the thing.
You've got
chargers are definitely one of those. You just can't swing by the dollar store and pick those things up. I don't trust.
It's like it's gas station sushi. It's literally just it's
that's
like
a show title.
Yes,
yes, it is.
You got it. You don't buy sushi at the gas station. You also don't buy that Duracell car charger that's at the gas station as well. So don't buy your lunch there, and don't buy your car charger there. unless you want your stuff to catch on fire. Like, and you're behind at that point.
You have a minimum of 365 opportunities a year while you're sleeping for this thing to go ablaze. Is that really where you want to save your money? Like,
just, I mean, you know better. I mean, we've talked about it to people, and as many people as we can influence about a subject like this. Like, I remember when Type-C was a thing initially, and me and Eddie went back and forth because I was like, well, I need another cable. And he was like, you can't use anything besides the Google provided one. I think it was a Pixel when we first got the Pixels. And it was like, there's nothing else will work correctly right now. We have to use those and wait until something else is using the same standards so your phone won't go nuts or melt. So, I mean, Type-C is new enough that you can't buy Tom, Dick, and Harry chargers and expect your stuff to not catch on fire.
And the manufacturers have done a commendable job, like, you know, Samsung, Google, Motorola, like in terms of building in software in the phone that can try to minimize, like they try to help fix cheap, but some phones, some cords are just like so cheap that there just is no preventative measure. Like no matter how hard the phone tries to regulate it, I mean, the cord itself has crossed continents, and the end cost to the user is $2. You're gonna have some corners were cut.
It's made out of freaking Legos.
Now you got me curious where gas station sushi comes from.
That's probably cross continents too.
Yes. So I didn't know this was going to turn into a PSA. But I think where we ended up was worth it. I'm not saying to go ahead.
I was going to say, I think when the moral is, do you like having things that are not on fire? That's a good thing to bring up.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not telling you to buy OEM cables. I'm telling you to do your research prior to. Eddie literally did a 2-minute Amazon search and saw 400 people that were like, what the hell?
I have a hole in my couch now because of this cord. And I'm like, well,
I mean, seems like it's not that hard. I mean, we've been telling people to look at quality cables. One majority of the time is because people live off of these devices and will be upset, as an understatement, if it doesn't work right or is ruined. And user error is 90% of that. So
and they're not monitored.
Take care of your stuff.
You know, you don't really monitor. That's one of the few things that have, you know, potential of an incident happening that you don't monitor. Like you don't put things in the oven and stop watching it. You don't cook things and stuff. Like you plug a phone in with a tremendous amount of power going into it, and then you go to sleep right next to it. For that matter,
some people sleep with it underneath their pillow. Like,
so if there was something where you should, you know, pay close attention to and not willy-nilly, you know, just get something, that's one of them for sure.
Well, I'm glad I brought it up because that was worth sure going through a little bit. We were going to talk about some Nintendo Switch stuff. Do you want to touch on it quickly? Because I'm going to give Eddie a minute with.
There's only like one real exciting thing that's come out about it. The Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee bundles have been announced, which is very exciting. So it comes with the game and your choice of either, you know, Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee, and it comes with a special edition Switch that has a brown Joy-Con and a yellow Joy-Con, and has Eevee and Pikachu featured on the Switch itself. So very cool. Priced at $399.99, which is not uncommon for a bundle. So the Switch is $300, the game is $60, plus it comes with the like Pokeball remote as well. I'm not well versed on it, but it comes with that, so you might save maybe $5 I think by doing the bundle. But that's the latest news to come out on the Switch.
I was so excited about
I saw
Mark, your face is like priceless.
I just like it wasn't the information, it was the delivery. And I can't knock you for being excited about something. That's terrible of me to do.
Switch is cool. I saw there were Nintendo controllers coming out for it to
I've seen that.
work with the like straight up old school Nintendo classic AB and D-pad controllers to work with their 8-bit games that are coming along with their online service that may or may not have launched.
I can't remember
or soon
that comes out.
But the controllers were supposed to be out soon, and they're supposed to be out the same day. So,
yeah, I saw that. I saw that somewhere.
One other note on the gaming front that I picked up on an article a couple of weeks ago that my buddy sent me. PlayStation has 4 new colors of controller coming out, so that's something to look forward to as well.
I'm actually excited about that. That makes me happy.
Yeah, there's a copper gold one. There's a orange blaze, so it's orange with blue buttons, and that was in Australia originally. It's pretty sharp. There's like an Arctic camo one that I glanced over real quick because I'm not real big into camo anything. And then I think it's called Berry Blaze. It's kind of the blue of Eddie's shirt with pink buttons and accents. It's actually pretty cool looking. So
I'll take
something
it.
else to throw your money at.
Well, yeah, because colorware is a big thing now. So people are taking their own stuff and just getting that stuff overrun with that stuff. But I mean, I like a good color. I've caught myself looking at controllers for no good reason because I like the colors of them. It's one of those things where one of those things you don't want to skimp on as far as what make you purchase. Right. Like it may not blow up.
Wildcat or OEM. That's all I'll go with.
Yeah. So there's something else you don't want to skimp out on. So to end or to round out the whole discussion in general, Eddie usually gets his Tesla minute. This is going to be way more than a minute. He has a couple things that were interesting. I threw in the fact that Elon Musk is smoking a little bit. But there's a couple of things I think you wanted to touch on, Edward, on the Tesla front.
Yeah, I just actually wanted a roundtable to get I'm jaded as far as like I believe that the vehicles can do no wrong even when they do. So it's good to hear another perspective. But the first images of the new software have leaked out, which are expected, in another 2 weeks or so. So it should be about 2 weeks from now.
So navigation software.
What software? It's the user interface software. So like the instrument clusters, like essentially there are no buttons. There are very few buttons in a Tesla itself. Every control from the radio to the heat, to the just navigation around like the vehicle itself, making changes to your high beams, to everything is all touchscreen interfaced. It's all changing. They're looking to unify the Model 3 and the S and the X because currently there's a stark difference. And I don't recall which version of iOS it was, but there was a version of iOS that had the big buttons in it. And then the following version came out and it had like these little switches, and it kind of essentially changed the way you use the phone. It brought in the control panel. There were these changes to iOS, and people like lost their minds. Like they didn't know how to use their phone. It's like their phone was foreign to them again. And I wonder, for those not enthusiasts, like for me as an enthusiast, I've been following it. I'll be fine. But like, just for the average everyday car goer that gets in your vehicle one morning and you go to turn your headlights on and then it's not there. How does that work, for the average person? Because like, to me, I'm like, oh, I'll figure it out. No problem. It's not going to be an issue. But, if I think of it in terms of, the people who bought that vehicle for any other number of reasons that don't follow the technology, like what's that going to be like? Is that a
thing? Is that person a real thing? Is the person that bought that Tesla, as jaded as this going to sound, like did a person buy a Tesla not being up on that technology?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes, I'm on a couple of forums and I answer questions all the time from people who have owned the vehicle for months or years. So I'll have these little tips and tricks and things that I'll put out there that I'll take videos of when I catch a cool new feature. And then I'll get a response from someone saying, holy crap, I didn't know my car could do that. And they've owned it for years and years and years. Or if something has changed, or they're just finding it now, like being able to toggle something on or off. So that definitely exists. And it just, up until now, the interface has just ever so slightly moved around. It was headlights where there's a button for specific settings for your heated instruments. There's for your rear view camera. Like, they're all in about the same place that they were for the past, 4 versions of the software. And this is, completely different. Like, I can't even, it's not even similar. Like, there's nothing similar about it. Like, the entire thing has changed. Everything from how you read your speedometer all the way down the line. And it is going to be something to see, like, folks who have owned the vehicle for 2-3 years, just one day, boom, done, changed.
I'm trying to
remember it being
someone breaking into my car, and instead of stealing anything out of my car, just moving all my stuff around in the car, I would probably lose my damn mind if I didn't know it was coming. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that there are going to be those Tesla users that are going to turn on their car and be like, I suddenly don't know how to drive anymore, and just walk to work.
It's a good thing it drives itself.
It doesn't drive itself if you can't figure out how to turn that on. Now can.
Yeah. I think the biggest part of this is what Eddie said, is the metaphor of someone's phone interface changing, and just the amount of I can't even that happens whenever that goes down.
What iOS was that? But it was huge. It was such a big deal.
9? Was it iOS 9 that they?
I thought it was from 7 to 8.
I thought 7 was a thing where the control panel was the bigger part, where I was like, people were like, why does this keep coming down now? And everybody's like, I'm turning my Wi-Fi off. Why is my Wi-Fi not on? Because every time you pull it down. Or they had do not disturb was a thing. So that was the big thing. So if you're pulling that up, or if you're doing whatever, you're turning do not disturb on, and then it's just like a mess. So that metaphor to me is the biggest tell on what do we use the most in our lives? Our phone and our car. Is that fair? So if I can't use my phone, sure, I'm frustrated, whatever, I'll figure it out. I'll Google it if I can find out how to Google on my phone after that. But when I can't drive my car, like, it makes it tough. I don't know. And like, I'm surprised to hear that not everybody that owns one of those vehicles is up on how they work, or how when their updates are going to hit, because they bought a car that's literally software driven. So there's people that like delay the software updates for eternity. Like, you can only delay them for so long before they self-install, kind of like the phones. Mm-hmm. And there are folks that are like, that get on the forums and they say, oh, I've been pushing this off for like 3 months and now it installed and I have no idea. And that's a minor change, like a slider bar, move positions, but not a whole user interface change. It's a dramatic shift. Just seeing the leaked photos, it would be as jarring as moving from Android to iOS or vice versa, where it's literally 2 completely different looks or experiences.
Right. Maybe this is how Elon Musk starts becoming a supervillain. This is his first stage.
I like the fact that we got the dichotomy of Brian be like, he's a villain, he smokes pot. And he's like, he's God. He does all of these great things. And I've had conversations with Eddie about the forward thinking of Elon Musk and the good things he does in the world. And I think that there's some rose colored glasses on his end to a certain degree. I think he would agree a little bit. I fall somewhere in the middle. If I could take a payment on for a Tesla, I would 100% do it. I think that anybody that's talked to Eddie for more than 10 minutes about it wants to buy one, whether they can afford it or not. He just wants to use his referral code. But I understand the benefits of whether it be the roofs that they install, whether it be the cars and the environment. I understand.
SpaceX.
Yeah.
I mean, no, trust me, I'm all in on those companies. I mean, they do their end goal is so good. How can you not want to support someone that wants to save the world? But it's also someone who is one step away. The
very definition of being the underdog at saving the world. Like you, Brian, want to save the world, and then everybody is against you. Everybody tries to put out bad stories about you, to hurt you financially. Everybody
it's because of money.
They do whatever they can to bring you down. So you go from, I need to save the world and everybody in it, to I need to save the world by getting rid of all of these other people.
That's
genocide.
And that's exactly how Dr. Octopus was born. That's how the Green Goblin came about. Like, I mean,
that's all it's going to take. It's going to take one person to murder his parents right after the theater.
No one needs this Venom movie. They need Elon Musk in his next Marvel.
Elon Musk as Venom, I think would be great.
Would make sense.
You just need to follow him around with the camera, because he's going to crack eventually. And the person who gets that on video, they can pinpoint the exact
moment.
Let's talk
about this picture, because he already did a little bit. This is my favorite picture on the internet.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good.
Someone took that clip and went through frame by frame until they got to that exact moment, and then screen grabbed it.
Are you saying it's out of context, Eddie?
Yes.
What?
That screenshot is completely. It is.
What part of this is out of context?
It's so. Look at other Look at Snoop Dogg and folks that you get pictures of that they're holding the joint. They're like, they've got this chill face on it. They've got this look about them. You went to the exact moment where he was making the most ridiculous facial expressions that you could, and then you screen grabbed that. There's just no.
Okay, you're getting a little ridiculous right now.
That's on Business Insider, which is
you're a little bit more
still
than an apology right now. You're in it pretty deep, like elbow deep, and I'm not a fan of it right now.
Personally, I don't care if you smoke pot. Doesn't bother me.
It needs
I really
to be legal.
don't care.
Should be legal.
That picture is just so funny, just so hilarious. It makes me like the man more in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Me and Eddie's conversations of revolving around Tesla involve him challenging the auto industry right now, and the oil business, and all of the natural resource industries, to a point where big business doesn't like to hear him come around because he's endangering their bottom lines. So this is why people don't want to pass off bad information about Elon, because he's affecting their bottom line. These millionaire or billionaires that are used to making this money that won't make it if he's doing what he needs to do to save the world.
They won't be able to afford their third yacht. Could you imagine the stress?
I mean, that's the I think what I've learned from my conversations is that his bottom line of saving the earth, I'm sure, I mean, he wants his companies to make money. He's not just in it for the hell of it. Because I hear stories about how much money they hemorrhage all the time. Tesla themselves, not necessarily his his other businesses. But so he's not making money hand over fist right now, but he's just trying to ramp up production at this point so that he can hit all the marks that I think he's been promising for a while. But I root for that cause. I root for him. I mean, I like the antics. I mean, why do I want anti-hero or whatever you want to call it that is no fun? Like,
I mean, also think about it too. Who's the GM of Ford? You know, like who's the CEO? Like who I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't care.
A Ford? Somebody?
Maybe. I don't know. But everybody knows who Elon Musk is. Everybody knows what companies he owns.
Most of the time you have to ask Google to tell you who the CEO of a particular company is. With I would say the top of my head, I have two, Apple and Tesla. I can tell you who their CEO is right off the top of my head.
Ask Eddie who he has stock in. Ask him who he has stock in. Just off the top of your head. But yes, I agree. I'm sorry, I keep putting Eddie in bad spots. But I mean, this is what we need.
I guess I'm supposed to disclose that, huh? Like I think that you're supposed to disclose that you're a stockholder.
I don't know. Is that a thing?
I thought so. But just in case,
okay.
Yes, I do have positions in Tesla. So there we go.
Yeah, hashtag rose-colored Tesla-colored glasses over here. That see, it's funny because Brian comes from this is just hilarious side of things. I come from a realistic aspect where I could be swayed either way. I don't know that I could be swayed anti Tesla or Elon Musk. Some of the ways he goes about things are a little bit over the top, but what he stands for, I don't know how anybody could 100%. Have an issue.
There's no bad thing that can happen by moving quickly to a renewable society where we no longer have to drill or frack or do all this stuff. Like, nothing bad can happen, regardless of whether you believe in global warming or not. The alternative, so if we race to renewable and we get renewable energy, fantastic. That's fantastic. If you look at coal and oil as something that will eventually run out at some point to some capacity, even if global warming could never happen just ignore all the research, all the science, all the everything, say that what bad can happen by moving to renewable anyway. Like, there's just no.
Those businesses will be losing money. So you're talking about capitalism and everything. And this got super political all of a sudden, and I don't know where this is going, but it all comes back to profit and money. And when one business is out to affect another business's bottom line, they're going to take them down at any means possible, regardless of what. It's like Robin Hood and like stealing from the rich to give to the poor. I don't know how much he's stealing necessarily, but he's stealing market share and basically giving it back to the earth.
Right. And those companies are stealing from the earth and giving to. Mm-hmm. But something's got to break at some point.
I tried an Eddie analogy. It didn't really work. It worked kind of, but it wasn't the greatest ever. But yeah, so Elon Musk smoked weed and he's saving the world. And he'll probably be a evil supervillain, like Brian said.
We'll have something cool to talk about 2 weeks from now, because there's no way he won't do something ridiculous.
Tripping on that.
It's been 12 days.
I'm ready.
It's been like 11 or 12 days, so there's just no way. We ought to start a poll to see like which
Twitter poll,
what power he's gonna get. Like, is he going to be electrocuted? Is he going to be electrocuted and gain some kind of electrical power? Is he going to be radioactive? Is he going to be like Lex Luthor and just build like robots to just destroy everybody?
Okay, so Brian, throw the Twitter poll up. We have 2 followers. It's me and Brian on Twitter for the channel's Twitter account. So
we'll have 3 as soon as we're done.
Yes, about to vote ourselves. What's the Twitter handle for that, Brian?
That'll be Tech4, the number 4, 3, the word 3. Otherwise, it would be Tech 43, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, it would to us as the inside joke.
Oh, yeah, but, you know.
To everybody else, it doesn't.
Who cares about us?
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Do you have anything on your own personal channel, Eddie, that you're working on right now?
Same old stuff, like, you know, autopilot improvements. I've got some headphone comparisons coming up here between AirPods, Bose, Pixel Buds, Braggy Dash, like all of the bud based wireless stuff, just to, you know, get a comfort perspective. And then not only for me, but for Mary, somebody with smaller ears, like, you know, what they think of it. Just I honestly anticipated AirPod 2s being out by now, so I'd have another thing to do. So it kind of puts a damper on things because they just
don't exist.
Maybe they exist. So
somewhere in Cupertino.
Yeah, and the ramp up to what's going to happen next with the new software in the vehicles, which is going to be useful for a lot of folks because, you know, like we were talking about, they're going to wake up one day and their entire user interface is going to be different.
We're going to do a Twitter poll on how many Teslas drive into buildings themselves because they don't know what the hell they're doing with their cars. So you can find Eddie Daniels on YouTube, not the clarinet player.
Sadly,
is he still number one?
Not the clarinet player. He is still number one.
He's still number one, yeah.
Okay. So there's Eddie Daniels, who's a clarinet player who is a boss, apparently, and crushes it. But you want to go a step below that, find Eddie Daniels. He has tech reviews, the Tesla stuff to keep up on.
I will be yelling it out the window. Like, I'm going to see another Tesla driving by with the headlights off at night. And I'm like, follow me. I'll show you how to fix that.
There you go. Yeah, as he drives by into the woods because he doesn't know where the hell he's going. But yeah, so find Eddie Daniels on YouTube to get kind of your fix on those sort of things. A lot of stuff we talk about here, but also to the Tesla stuff is a big deal. I've tried to be the first like on many of his videos. I've succeeded a couple of times. But to round anything out, is there anything else you guys have for this week in this episode?
Nothing besides kickstarting the Horizon Zero Dawn board game, but that's for another day.
That is going to be a thing. It's kind of close to Pokemon in Brian's world.
But I've been following every single update from that Kickstarter. A lot of stretch goals hit. I'm getting a ton of crap, so I'm pretty excited.
Very nice. Well, we appreciate anybody that watches this when it goes live. I'm going to try to get as many links in the description of things we talked about, videos we've talked about that we referenced. Actually, Brian's going to do it because I'm not going to. And basically, we appreciate anybody taking a look at this. And if we've helped anybody want to buy a Tesla. We appreciate it. This is Tech 43 for episode 5. Say goodbye, Eddie.
Goodbye, Eddie.
Say goodbye, Brian.
Goodbye, Eddie.
Awful. Have a great night.